wrestling coach Don Ernst, both of them fighting for their life with cancer. We ask you for your prayers for them. And of course, praying for everyone in the wrestling community struggling mind, body, spirit. We want to make sure you donate to Beat the Streets. We have a link that's going to be in the show notes. Make sure you click that. And remember, leaders are readers. So make sure you're jumping on board, getting all of the summer reading that we have, the many books of many of the great speakers. You'll see us constantly post that, not the least of which being our Predator Mindset book, in building it in wrestling, school, and in life. And we're super excited right now to bring to you one of the greatest coaches really of all time. And I'm from New Jersey, and there's one name that stands out from the rest in New Jersey coaching. It's the great Jeff Buxton, former coach of Blair Academy. He's talking about developing elite athletes, head coach of the Lehigh Valley Wrestling Club, and U.S. Freestyle World Team coach. Coach, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, we'll jump right into it. So first, all athletes are different. What general skills, attitudes, and techniques would you like to see kids grasp at each level? So like the elementary school level, middle school, high school, college, what are some of the general things that you would like to see?
The ability to learn and wanting to learn. I feel that's one of the facets that make the great ones even greater. Great wrestlers want to be coached, and I found that working with the USA team, as well as all the way down to middle school or even junior level wrestlers. The great ones always want to be coached, and so being able to give them that ability to continue to learn, have the ability to watch video, and sometimes learning on their own is a great facet. And I use video a lot. Their own video as well as other people's videos as the ability to continue to learn. And I think that's what really keeps an elite athlete going. The have that new knowledge, always working on something a little bit different, a little bit new, but always coming back to what makes you good. And I just got done with a training camp with the Olympic team, and we were 10 days out at Penn State. And the focus of the camp was more to an individualized approach. Each workout was set up with that in mind, and giving those athletes the ability to work on things with their own coaches' eyes on them as well as other eyes on them. So there's a lot of interaction that's going on and communicated through the coaches mostly, but giving people ideas and thoughts, tactics, strategies, techniques, just to prepare them for the biggest tournament of their lives, which is the Olympic Games. So, I feel that's something that's, not just, on the Olympic level, but on the high school level, on the junior high level, on the elementary level, of keeping the facet of learning a priority in every practice. So when I set up my practices, I try to make there always be something learned in that practice, something a little bit different that they haven't seen, something that they can use or continue to develop in their own style of wrestling. But I think that's one thing that I've done pretty much as a coach throughout my entire career is trying to bring something new to the table, especially in evaluating at the end of the year what you did and what you thought you could do better or what you needed to do better, and what could you bring to your team the following year. Whether you're trying to build culture, whether you're trying to build better conditioning or techniques, I would always go to my athletes and talk to them about, what did you think was good this year? What didn't you think was good this year? And especially when they went off to college, asking them, how did I prepare you well? What could I have done better? And sometimes it's, things like, you didn't prepare us for the amount of running that we were going to have to do. Well, I'm happy about that if that's the only thing I didn't do. But, especially as a young coach, they came back and told me that we weren't ready for the top bottom of collegiate wrestling. Or we needed to get better in parterre positions in freestyle wrestling. So, as a young coach, I made an emphasis of teaching more from top bottom position, and especially in parterre positions in freestyle. But moving on from jobs from a high school coach to an RTC coach, I've come very proficient in a lot of freestyle, where I study it a lot more, and being able to bring things from studying and learning, and then being able to use them on high level athletes. It's been a great stepping stone for me as a coach.
Excellent. And as you're saying about communicating with those athletes, how frequently are you communicating with the athletes, like doing those check-ins?
So with an RTC athlete, every day, how do you feel? And trying to get their training. So one, that you're not overtraining, whether you're in a learning phase or in a preparation for the trials phase, or we're getting ready for an overseas tournament. There's constant communication with the athletes, more than I would do with a high school athlete. But I just remember going back to the great ones that I had coached, like a Stephen Mako. What did you feel that in this practice I could have done better with you with? And he was really good about talking about, I need this partner. I think we need to work on these techniques. With a Mark Perry or a Zach Esposito or a Corey Cooper, and those were easy conversations. The Prestons, these guys all had great wrestling minds. And so they wanted to be involved with what I was thinking about, but as well as what they were thinking about, and developing, making the practices a little bit more individualized. I even do that in planning practices at a club workout with high school kids. I'll have in mind a particular kid who's getting ready so right now they're all getting ready for Fargo, and making them really good in freestyle positions. I would call them elite level kids, because they're doing something that's a little bit special, and trying to winning a freestyle championship. But also in that preparation,
Right.
along the way, is trying to make world teams. And to me, that's what it's all about at the higher end. At the lower end, it's about getting good fundamentals, being able to wrestle in positions that you're going to be in all the time, instead of flip-flopping all around. And that's something that I would say that a lot of my practices are dealt with, is there's a phase of play, there's a phase of sparring, and then there's a phase of live wrestling. And I try to get those phases in each practice, where there's that constant learning of getting in this position, knowing what you're supposed to do, and trying to perfect it.
Okay. Yeah, because that's important. I think about like the average high school coach. They're communicating. They're not necessarily going to be checking in every day with the kid, right? Because there's a lot of kids that they don't know what they're doing.
Yep.
So what would you recommend for just the average high school coach? I know we have a lot of them on here.
So for the average high school coach, is getting and I was a big system guy. I have my system, but outside of the system, you have certain athletes that will wrestle a little bit differently than what your system is. So for an example, and I'm going to go back a couple of years, Corey Cooperman. When he first came in, I was trying to teach him to not allow people to touch his legs. And I felt that as he moved on to the best kids in the country, and we saw him right away out of the gates at the Ironman, Beast of the East, Powerade, whatever tournament it was. And then later on, when they were getting into trying to make world teams, I felt at that time that I had to make him better at not having people touch his legs. So we spent a lot of time on it, and it was, we went through some growing pains with it. And finally I just said, let's try this. Let's pull people into our legs. And for him, it worked great. And he developed a style a little bit different than what other people were doing. And, I could go up and down the line with several kids that I had that were outside of what my box was, what my system was, but trying to incorporate that into what they do really well. So, you take a team approach, and I think having a system that you want to develop for your team, whether it's how you teach them hand fighting, how you teach them what ties you want them to get into, what leg attacks that you want to get to, how you're going to ride. And so there were, certain techniques that I required kids to know really well. And one was a Turk, but just because I felt that it was a good way of scoring points, and high school kids weren't ready for it. Doing Turks and bottom legs, that type of thing. And our team got to be really good at it. And we were able to tie people up for a long time on the bottom. So it worked as not only as we were scoring back points, but we were able to work our Turks into better rides, and being able to open matches up and scoring points. And developing a wrist ride was a big one. I wanted everybody on the team to be able to be good wrist riders, and being able to really focus on putting the weight on people's hands. And the other area that worked really well on is defense, and not letting people touch our legs, understanding positioning of down blocking with your head and your hands, and being able to move your feet to get to your go behind, setting up your offense. And if you have a good defense, it's really, if you have a good defense and you can ride, you can be a pretty successful college wrestler. But I think that's what separates people in matches, and being able to win the close ones, being able to finish matches on top. But that was all incorporated into what our system was, and that developed throughout years, mainly talking to kids and having that communication of what I could do better as a coach. So I would say that as a coach, I'm always evolving, and even to this day, I'm learning new things, and I'm pretty lucky. I have the ability to be around Olympic team guys, and seeing what they're doing and how they're practicing, and being around their coaches and learning from their coaches. It's just an incredible outlet for me. And I can bring it back to my RTC as well as Lehigh University and my wrestling club. So I would say to high school coaches, and getting back to your question, have a system, but always be able to deviate from the system, especially when you got those special athletes. And I use Corey Cooperman as an example. That Mark Perry was another one of those guys that was a little bit different, and his ability to ride was incredible. But if you threw a leg on him, you were in trouble, or you got to his legs, you were in trouble. And then there's a Stephen Mako or a Zach Esposito that had really good offense, and you tried to make them as offensive as possible. Steve always had his foot sweeps to go back on, but he was one mean guy too. So there was the ability to fight, which I think is important in the sport. I always felt my teams were good hand fighters. And I'm walking around now thinking about hand fighting, to this day, and watching Roman Bravo Young this past week, and that there's no hand fight with that guy because he moves so well, and it's made me rethink about doing a little bit more footwork and involving in our hand fight, but incorporating it to what I do well as a coach and what my athletes do well.
That's excellent. Yeah, Ryan Warner from Wrestling Changed My Life. Shout out to him, one of the top podcasts in wrestling. He was asking, what are some of the other technique requirements you have? You said the bottom leg series. You said defense. Mm-hmm. You said, well, you just brought up hand fighting there. Riding the wrist.
Riding a wrist.
Was there anything else there?
There's a ton.
I want to give away the house right here.
Well, as I said before, I try to incorporate play, sparring, and wrestling as a part of practice. And I just got done with a lesson about a half an hour ago, and I started the lesson out with a kid I work with quite a bit. He goes to Del Barton in New Jersey, and just putting him in single leg positions where he's stuck down on the mat, and uh, and focusing on a couple of areas and trying to make him more proficient when a guy's sprawling on him, and where he needs to go. So, there's, very simple foundations in wrestling. If your head's up and your hips are in, you're going to do well. And it goes through with, just about every wrestling position. But with him, we were really focusing on the drive of keeping his head up, and not allowing his elbows to hit the mats, and really pushing with his feet and getting his shoulder in position and having his head up. So we were doing it in single leg, and we were doing it in high crotch, and we were starting out with on one knee and having the defensive man pull him down to two knees, and trying to continue to develop strength, coordination, and moving through these positions. And I don't care, who you are, if you're an elementary school wrestler or you're at the highest level, as an Olympian, you have to be really good in these positions, because you're going to get pulled down to your knees, and you have to find a way of either keeping your hands locked or keeping your head up and improving your position. So there's a lot of element about shot recovery. And I feel if you're not really good in these areas, you're going to, one, be afraid to shoot, and two, you're going to panic in situations where there's 30 seconds left in the match and you're down by one and you've got to get to a leg. So in developing those skills with this one kid, I put him first in a play, and then I put him in a spar, and then I made him live wrestle out of all those situations with head on the inside, head on the outside. And then in doing it where, and we do some of these goes and practices where you try to simulate, and it's really hard to simulate, right? But you're trying to put the pressure on them as much as possible, and putting them in positions where there's 30 seconds left in the mat, they have to score, or there's 30 seconds left in the mat and you have to keep that guy off your legs. And then changing it to, there's a minute left in the match and you're up by 3, or you're down by 3, or up by 2 and you're down by 2. Knowing where you feel you need to go and how you need to get there. And one is the takeoff and getting to your hand fight, whether it's a fake, it's a snap, it's making motions of trying to get a guy out of his stance. But then once you get into the leg, you got to make all those things come together. So in, starting out slow in practice, a lot of times I will put people in positions and just do slow play where you're trying to stuff the head, or you're trying to run corners on guys, and focusing on keeping your head up, keeping yourself out of front head, keeping yourself out of chest lock situations. And I know that's a lot for the regular high school coach, but if they start thinking about positions of making kids better and positions that they're in all the time, they're going to have a lot more success. So, whether it's building a base on bottom, or, whether it's learning how to keep a leg out, or, learning to get to a wrist, learning to get to a claw ride, learning to put weight on guys' hands. I think you got to play with it first, then you got to spar it, and then you got to live wrestle it. But then you got to turn it into match situations where they know where they're going to go and how they're going to do it. And so, like, you see some kids, they get to a tail end of a match and there's 30 seconds left and they didn't do a thing. And you're going, why didn't you do anything? I don't know what to do. And so trying to put them into those situations, and it goes on both sides of from the offensive side into the defense, or the winning side and the losing side of where you're going to be, how you're going to put yourself. And right now I'm on the freestyle mindset of holding center, of not getting hit with a flea, making sure that there's no push out, maintaining your hand fight, and continue to keep wrestling through positions. And that's the big thing, I think, in teaching elite athletes. Once they learn how to wrestle through positions, that's when these great ones create the scrambles. That's when the great ones, create the mat return. That's when the great ones finish up on their takedowns. And so in teaching, this thing's supposed to be about elite athletes, but you're trying to make the good young ones elite athletes. If you start them off on an early phase of, and I hate to use not hate to use your word, but to have that mindset of continuing to learn, continuing to develop, and to know what you do in those pressure situations of either its tactics or techniques is important. So, I'm getting back to um, learning, one, having fun while you're learning, and doing those I think sparring is fun because it puts people in positions that they're normally not in, and learning how to deal with them. And then trying to do those same things, and getting that feel, that strength, that coordination in the wrestling hard situations. I know you got questions.
Excellent.
I see you going right now.
When the wheels are turning. So much I could ask you. I remember when we did our Meeting of the Minds episode on Instagram, it was like that went a full hour, and we could have went longer. We literally cut with 5 seconds left in the tape. All right, here's the last question I had for you about this. We know what live wrestling is. You brought up play wrestling, you brought up sparring. A lot of people don't do this well at all. They don't know how to make those distinctions. What should they be thinking? What are the common mistakes you see of what they're doing, play versus spar versus live?
Okay, so you've when you've been around wrestling, especially as much as I have, you have those guys that can't play. They're just, even when they're drilling, they're just full out go, and they have an ego where they're never going to let you score on you, and they're going to fight you in every position. So I had a young Nick Soriano, and Nick is 100% at every second, every time in a wrestling, even if it's in a drill, he's going 100%. And trying to teach him how to handle funk, we had to put him in those positions, and it was really hard. And one, you got to get into those positions. He didn't want to be in the position. I'll never be here. And I go, you're going to be here. You're going to be here against the great ones. You're going to be here. And he's got an incredible mind for wrestling, and he has an incredible mindset for wrestling, like nobody I've ever seen. And he reminds me of these two guys remind me of each other so well. Spencer Lee, where they're incredible athletes, they have incredible strength, and they have incredible mindsets. But they also have incredible egos that they don't want to ever give up a takedown, whether it's in practice or not. So trying to develop that play end of it is sometimes hard. And Nick, I think, I haven't been around him a lot of late. I did when he won his NCAA title, worked with him a few times. And he was working with me, so he better play, because I didn't want to have him going full out on me. But in teaching him some positions, I felt that he learned that a lot more as he grew up and got into it. So with young kids, you have to explain to them that you're going to be in a bad position sometimes, and learning how to wrestle through that position, learning how to scramble in that position, and teaching your body what to do requires you to get yourself in positions that you're normally not in, and then to do it at a little higher pace than a spar. And so teaching, even college kids have a hard time with this. With my RTC guys, because we do it so much, they do it so well. And I had an opportunity to watch Penn State wrestle for last 10 days. They do it incredibly well. And their practices almost just start off with guys playing around in situations, having fun with it, and then moving to sparring, and then moving to live wrestling. And I feel that in teaching wrestling and trying to make guys understand positionings, you have to put them in these positions, or then they're never going to learn it. And if you are going to get some fight early on, or some frustration early on, because I don't want to be here. Well, you're going to be here sometimes, and knowing what you're going to do in this position, like just for an example, You know, a guy shoots a high crotch to one side and he shoots a single leg to the other side. Sometimes your head gets pushed in on the inside out of that high crotch. What are you going to do in that position when you get there? And if you don't go through the scenario, you're not going to be very good at it. And if you don't get that ability to put yourself in the position and play with it first, understand it a little bit, and then get a little bit more of resistance on it in the spar, and then finally getting it in full out go, you're never going to understand it.
Right. That's why it's so important to break it down, slow it down. See, a lot of us, we just don't shake the fact that if we're not going 100%, we're holding back. But that's not what it is. You are going 100% because mentally you're attuned to what's going on. You're slowing it down. So it's not just a physical all out 100%. It's mentally being there.
I'm going to give you another example. Darian Cruz just said the exact same thing to me the other day. And you know, if you don't know Darian, he's an NCAA champ. He's a national team member. You know, he's done well. You know, at all phases of wrestling. He's a couple times state champ out of Pennsylvania. Successful as a little kid. He said to me the other day, "I need to slow it down right now." And I said, "Okay, let's talk about it a little bit." And so we were talking about some sets, some shots, and other ways of getting into legs. But he says, "Right now, I need to slow it down." Great, let's do this. And that's communication through athlete, coach. You know, he trusts me, I trust him. You know, being able to, you know, put yourself at that situation at that level. And you know, I think, you know, the more and more you grow up with your coach and being able to have conversations with your coach and exactly telling him what's on your mind is really good. And that's, you know, that's one thing that I've tried to do from, you know, being, you know, working with young kids as well as moving up to high level guys. And you know, it's kind of funny at the Olympic team champs, you know, Kyle Dake would come up to me, "What do you see?" "I see that you're wrestling really good." "I see that you're ready. Let's go." You know, so you know, it's fun watching these guys grow up, you know, and we competed against David Taylor, Thomas Gilman, you know, them growing up and now seeing them as, you know, high level athletes and you know, them still in the process of learning and, you know, making themselves better is awesome to see.
Awesome stuff, Coach. Great. I mean, I have so many more questions. We got to get to Lee Kemp in 3 minutes. So everyone, make sure you click that link so you jump in and get that. But yeah, we just
Say hi to Lee for me.
We'll do. It feels like these things go by in 3 minutes when we get on talking about this. But thank you very much for all you do for the sport, Coach. We really appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Everyone, you know, just giving great comment and feedback from everything you're saying. So
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for what you do for the sport.
Absolutely. Awesome. Take care, Coach. Thanks again.
Right. Yeah.
We'll see you.
Bye.
And everyone, just make sure you click that link for Lee Kemp here. 3-time world champ coming up. As you see, just dynamite performers over here. Like we said, this is an annual coaches clinic that we're having. Of course, we're dedicating it to the great Matt Eveleth and Don Ernst, both fighting for their life now with cancer. Please pray for them and pray for everyone in the wrestling community struggling, spirit, body, mind, emotions. Remember, readers are leaders. That's the big theme here. We have a lot of great coaches that have been on here. A lot of them have books, not the least of which being our Predator Mindset book. This is your summer reading program right here. Your Predator Mindset book, Wrestling Mindset. Chosen Suffering by Tom Ryan. Think It, Believe It, Do It by the great Carl Adams. Do It Anyway by Jim Miller. The great Lee Kemp, Winning Gold. He's up right now. Make sure you click that link and start it, grow it, sell it. The Journey of Business by Lou Bannock. Make sure you stay with us. Loaded more great information. Tell other coaches on your staff to make sure they jump on these calls. There's still time to sign up. We have over 1,500 people that sign up. People are still signing up as we're going here. Make sure you click the link for donate to Beat the Streets. We want to make sure we help them as much as we can. Stay with us. Click that link for Lee Kemp right now, and we'll see you soon.